Hi there, it's Nicole for Simon Says Stamp with a card showcasing stamps and dies from the new mini release from All of Us. And I've used the cute Dexter and Simon stamp set here with some other exclusive Simon Says Stamp dies and stamps to create this layered scene card today. To start, I'm going to cut a whole bunch of frames using a stitched rectangle die and a stitched oval die. The reason I am using so many of these layers of these frames is to be able to not use foam adhesive for this card. I really wanted it to have a little bit more of a texture without all of the foam tape, or layers, I guess, without the foam tape. From one of those inside ovals, I did cut a border of snow using the stitched slopes and hills dies. You could also use fun foam. I am still waiting on my order of fun foam, so I didn't have that yet. That would have worked as well instead of creating so many layers. I also die cut a solid rectangle from white cardstock, vellum, and a transparency to use as layers in my card. On some of those leftover ovals, I'm going to go ahead and use those to stamp my images for my card. I am using the large and small trees from the Home for the Holidays stamp set. This is a stamp set from last year's holiday release from Simon Says Stamp. Then I'm going to stamp the gift packages, the dog, the sled, and the little rope from the Dexter and Simon Christmas stamp set. A really adorable stamp set. All of these images are so super fun to color. I am going to use Copic markers today to color in my images. However, you could use any color medium that you like. Watercolors, colored pencils, other kinds of markers. Anything that you like will color beautifully. I will be speeding through the coloring a little bit. There is a lot of coloring here. The trees probably took the most time simply for all the layers. I'm going to show you how I colored one of the trees, and then I will just move on. Each of the trees is colored exactly the same. Instead of doing a whole bunch of blending, I'm actually going to lay down a base color of YG93. And once that base color of the tree is laid down, I'm going to use my mid-tone and darkest colors to feather in the textures of the tree. So underneath each layer, I'm going to have it be darker and then kind of go to the mid-tone color, and then it'll be light at the very ends. So starting with my darkest color, which is YG99, I'm using little short feathering strokes underneath each layer there. While this is a tiny bit time consuming, it's probably not any more time consuming than coloring these in and blending out the ink colors with your Copic markers. And I love the texture that this particular technique gives to trees. I did the exact same thing on all 5 of these trees, even though I'm just going to show you this one here. So go ahead and finish feathering out my dark color. Then I'm going to take my mid-tone color, and this will sort of blend my darkest color out just a tiny bit, because I'm going to feather over that and pull the color even further down into that lighter area to give that added texture. And you can see immediately the awesome texture that this gives to the tree. Gives it a really nice, a little bit more realistic look, I think. If the dark happens to blend out too much, you can always go back over that darker area with your darkest pen if you needed to. And then for the tree trunk, I'm going to use E47 and E49. Give a nice dark brown color. For Simon the dog, I am going to start with a base color of E40. And then E43 and E44 with a little R00 for the cheeks and the insides of the ears. So this just gives a nice base color. I always err on the side of caution and go lighter when coloring in any image because you can always darken it up, and I do end up darkening him up quite a bit. I will go in with an E47 here in a little bit, but I wanted to show how I started with the lighter color. I'm kind of tracing around with my darkest color here and then blending with my mid-tone color. Gives you a little more control this way, and you can build up the color exactly how you want it to look. I'm going to blend with my lightest color, the E40, and I'm going to pull that E40 down into the quote-unquote white areas of the dog. They're going to end up being a little bit more of a soft white, I guess I want to say. And I'll continue to blend and work those colors until I get it looking the way I want it to look. I'm going to go in with E49 for the nose. That gives a nice dark nose, which I think really starts to help make him look even better. Then I'm going to trace around in some of those areas where it would naturally be darker. I'm going to trace with my E44. After doing quite a bit of blending, I felt like it wasn't quite dark enough. That's why I'm going to go back in with a little E47 in a little bit. However, this is looking pretty good. For the antlers, I am going to use E49 and E47 to really make them stand out. He has the cute little antlers headband on and then a jingle bell harness, which is just so adorable. For the headband, I'm going to use R24 and R29, and then the band here where the jingle bells are as well. Very carefully coloring in that little teeny tiny area. I did use a little bit of a colorless blender to blend out some of that E40. And I'm going back in and just blending a little bit more on the dog. Using a little E43 for shading in those lighter areas. Here I'm going to go back with my dark color again. This was a little E44. I'm just adding in more dark because I felt like it blended out just a tiny bit too much. I love that you can go over the Copic markers as many times as you need to get it looking exactly the way you want it to look. For that jingle bell harness, I'm using the Wink of Stella Gold Glitter Brush pen over the jingle bells. I didn't even bother coloring them with a Copic marker. I just colored them with the gold glitter pen. For the sleigh, I'm going to stick with my dark browns that I was using for the tree trunks and the antlers. That's E47 and E49. And then for the gift packages, I'm going to do those in all bright colors. So the green and pink package is going to be, the green will be YG 21, 25, and 17. And then I'll move on to the pinks, which are our 81, 83, and 85. Just get that blended out the way I want it. The YG 21 really has a lot of colorless blender in it, so it will lighten it up just a tiny bit. Here's my pink colors. With so much green and natural colors in this card and lots of white, I felt like the packages needed to have a pop of color. And I purposely tried to color them all different colors so that they would really give that nice punch of color to the card. This gift package is going to be in reds and greens. So I'm going to use R24 and 29 with YG 25 and 17 for the bow. Again, just blending that out as I go. Move on to the greens. I chose not to go with my lightest green for this bow. Kept it a little bit more of the Christmas green. I did blend out just a tiny bit on the tips with the YG21. For the last one, it's going to be aqua and pink. The aqua colors are BG11 and 13 with our 81 and 85. And then for the bottom of the sleigh, I decided to use that Wink of Stella Gold Glitter brush pen again. It kind of bled just a little bit there. Once all the ink is dry, I'm going to go ahead and use the coordinating dies for all of these images and die cut everything with the Big Shot. I just used a little Post-it tape to hold those in place and run them through the die cutting machine. I'll set everything to the side once I get those all die cut. And I will have to run these through several times for the trees since I have multiples of those. Just pop all of these little pieces out. I always like to have all of the elements ready to go so that the assembly of the card goes so much smoother and easier. On the transparency layer, I'm going to use some black Stays-On ink to stamp Merry Christmas to a dear friend. Both of these greetings are from the Dexter and Simon Christmas stamp set. Sorry, my head's in the way. I wanted to get that lined up just perfectly. Also on the transparency layer, I'm going to use the little cluster of snow and stamp that all over the transparency with white Stays-On ink. You want to use Stays-On ink so that it doesn't smear on the transparency. And I love being able to stamp my greetings and additional elements like snow on a transparency because it gives just another great layer to a card design. This is actually a card that showcases a transparency that isn't a shaker card. Using a little black Sakura gel pen for the eyes on the dog. And then for the nose, I'll take some glossy accents and let that dry really well. Little white gel pen for the highlights on the eyes. And I can start putting together the layers on my card. I'm going to take that solid white rectangle and then 2 layers of frames and attach those right to the solid rectangle as well as 3 of the 5 trees. So 3 of the trees are going to be behind the vellum layer. Use some adhesive to secure the frame directly over this. Go ahead and do 2 of them. I couldn't decide what adhesive I like to use best, and really the liquid adhesive ended up being the best. I wish I would have used it for most of the layers. Next, I'm going to attach my vellum layer, and you can see that mutes those trees. Then I can go ahead and attach another frame. Secure that in place, and then I can attach another frame right on top of this. And here I tried yet another adhesive. I was trying to find the best way to do this. I really kind of wish I would have done maybe some stick-it paper on the back of each layer. That probably would have worked the best. I'll also attach that snow border there, and I can go ahead and attach my last 2 trees on top of that vellum layer. It gives that really nice depth and dimension. And I'm also going to want to attach all of the rest of my elements before I move on. So I'm going to attach the dog, the sled, that little rope holding this, or so that he can pull the sled with the gifts. I'm using a little zig glue pen to attach most of these smaller little pieces here. Put that in place, and then I'll do the packages. I'm just going to grab some glue dots to pop those in place where they go. Layer in these 3 gifts on the sled. Now I'm going to go ahead and take the Wink of Stella clear glitter brush pen and go over the bows on the packages to give them a little sparkle and shine. I'm going to add 2 more layers of frames here so that it really builds up the frame layer so that my transparency isn't sitting right on top of all of these die cut pieces. Then I have a transparency attached behind my last frame. Here I was added a little bit more glue adhesive. This is just to secure the frames all the way around, and I'm putting something heavy on top of them to hold them down, and I'll finish with that top layer. The last thing I'll do is attach this whole scene to a white side fold card base from Simon Says Stamp and add glossy accents to the insides of the snowflake circles. And that completes my card. Thanks for watching this video showcasing the Simon Says Stamp from All of Us Stamps and Dies. Here are a couple more videos you might be interested in watching on my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.